Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Joe Cake. Great to see you, Joe. We have Colin. Great to have you on. Hope you're well. Bina. Great to see you. Hope you're well too. Norflinger is back. Great to have you on. Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you too. We also have Stu. Great to have you on, Stu. Hope you're well. Duke. Great to see you too. Chatty Rat is here. Fearless Wolf is here. Great to have you on. We have also John O'Sullivan, great to see you, John. Who else have we got? Aki's Mad, great to see you, Aki's Mad, hope you're well. We have Tiny Demolition Lover, hope you're well, up there in Scotland. We have also the Lefty Boater, great to see you. John again, another John, sorry. We have Eric, great to see you. Alistair, hope you're well, driving home from work. I'll post in the chat later, drive safely. We also have Asperger's Europe, great to see you. Von Mechanizer, great to see you too. Leo from Portsmouth, great to have you on. Killer, thanks for moderating, great to see you. We also have Gary King, Oraman, Lena, great to see you. Roisin Malone, great to have you on again. Roisin, hope you're well. We have Number Free, great to see you. Joe Green, CGM, great to have you on, CGM, hope you're well. And so many more. Hope you're all very well. We have a number free super chat. What's the path to being members of the EU again? The path to becoming a member of the European Union again is alignment with EU rules. There are a number of conditions laid out in the Copenhagen criteria regarding taxation, regarding human rights, free market, stuff like that. So those requirements would have to be filled if the UK were to rejoin the EU or join the EU, whichever way you want to put it. I don't know if the UK would fulfill a lot of that criteria today. You know, things about democracy, things about promotion of the EU, not much of that going on. So I think there'd be a bit of work to do before the UK would be accepted. And there are a number of countries who may actually veto. There was an interesting one, I think it was Roisin who was on Discord mentioned this, and there was an interesting scenario where Sinn Féin, so the party that's in power, has the biggest party in Northern Ireland at the moment, if they also won power in the Republic in the south, there's a chance that they could veto a UK rejoining the European Union. I don't know about that, but it's possible. They could say, as a condition of a united Ireland, if you support a united Ireland, then we'll let you, we'll take away our veto. And each country of the European Union does have a veto. Spain could also impose a veto. France could impose a veto. So there are a number of countries that could impose vetoes, but we're a long way away from that yet. Thanks for that super chat. But I do recommend reading through the Copenhagen criteria to understand the requirements to rejoin or join the European Union. Of course, rejoining may be different to joining because no country has actually rejoined. Anyway, I want to start off with this story. Just a moment to move some stuff around a little bit so I can see better. Poor people in the UK feel system rigged against them, says Penny Mordaunt. You know, who has been in charge for the last 13 years? Sometimes these Tories speak as if they're in opposition. Democracy and capitalism hang in balance as UK faces huge challenges, Leader of the Commons tells think tank. Penny Mordaunt has given a damning assessment of the state of the United Kingdom, where she said that many people feel things do not work for them and the poorest think the system is rigged against them, arguing that democracy and capitalism are hanging in the balance. It's almost as if, once again, she was a member of the opposition or she was some commentator, not the leader of the frigging house. The former rival to Rishi Sunak to lead the Conservative Party and now a cabinet minister said trust would only be won back when people feel understood. What is her angle here? This is the question I have. What is she playing at? Because she's not saying this for no reason. The Leader of the House of Commons set out her views in a speech at the Institute for Government conference in Westminster, saying her role in government would be to make Parliament the most effective in the world. You know, she's already lied in Parliament on the issue of Brexit, so not off to a very good start. But she made a series of much wider points about the challenges facing the United Kingdom, where she said the jigsaw pieces have been thrown up in the air by a combination of geopolitical challenges, technological changes, and COVID. Many people think things don't work, at least for them. She said, adding that for those with the least, the whole system can seem rigged against them. Almost, you know, once again, who does she think she is? Who does she think has been in power for the last 13 years? Said many people regard Fair Fuel, and Martin Lewis as their protectors rather than the state. Which is the magazine is a consumer magazine, consumer advice magazine, and Martin Lewis. Martin Lewis is, yes, hugely trusted, because he's more trusted than any politician is anyway. She also claimed young people are fixated on rewriting or tearing down the past because they don't believe they have a future. No, that's not completely misreading the room. Older people believe that the world has been Amazonized, their values trashed, and the high street hollowed out. Okay, I just want to go through a few things she said here. So, young people are fixated on rewriting or tearing down the past. How? How are they about tearing down the past? Looking at the past through a critical view, with a critical eye, is not tearing down the past. And they're doing it because they have no future. Well, the reason many young people don't have a future is because of what government policy has been over the last 13 years. Austerity, Brexit, things that have, they have lost a lot. They have seen public services being destroyed. They have seen their rights taken away with Brexit. And who is the party of Brexit at the moment? Penny Mordaunt. Once again, she's acting as if she's some sort of outsider looking in when she's part of the bloody system. Mordaunt said Sunak understood the importance of truth as a metric, but she also said the very continuation and success of capitalism and democracy hangs in the balance. She did not address the fact that the Conservatives have been in power for 12 years, but said she regularly set out the achievements of successive governments in her Thursday morning speeches from the dispatch box in the Commons. Asked about the gloominess of her assessment, Mordaunt said, "I want to focus on the future, and people like me should be focused on things that we want to improve. But the best way to improve things will be to get the Tories out. Despite everything we've been through, we have achieved a huge amount, such as, even during the pandemic, there's a huge amount that has been done, so I'm not remotely depressed about the situation." In terms of reforms to Parliament, Mordaunt said she was considering introducing proxy voting for MPs who are severely ill and using technology to reduce the strain on MPs who are new parents. It's not something new. It was introduced during the pandemic, and it makes sense. If there are MPs who are unable to vote, they should have someone vote on their behalf, and of course it has to be well regulated, well controlled. Otherwise you'd have MPs not turning up and somebody voting on their behalf. In Italy it was a big problem of this because there's an electronic voting system in the Italian Parliament, and they were calling them tasteristi, I think it was. It's like keyboard players, because you'd have somebody vote. You'd have one person voting for 3 or 4 MPs, because those MPs would be, on the beach or in a cafe, having a coffee or something. They didn't bother to turn up, or would be, meeting with their donors, something like that. So you want to be very careful about that sort of approach. But yeah, there should be reforms that benefit the system. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. at the poor end, we think it's rigged, we know. We don't think, sorry, the poor end, we don't think it's rigged, we know. Yeah, we don't think it's rigged, we know it's rigged. And who has rigged it over the last 13 years in particular? It's been rigged for a long time, but it seems to have gotten much worse over the last 13 years. Thanks once again for that, Magic. Pressed on why so many MPs have been censored over ethical issues in recent years, she said people need to step back and ask why this has happened. Mordaunt cited huge pressures and stresses of political life and suggested that there may be more collective responsibility between Parliament, the Cabinet Office and political parties over ethical issues. Rishi Sunak has yet to appoint an ethics advisor. So, I think she needs to clean up her own house before talking about Parliament. Mordaunt said that she was keen to restart the process on the restoration and renewal programme for Parliament, which stalled under her predecessor, Jacob Rees-Mogg. The works could cost up to £13 billion if parliamentarians move out of the Palace of Westminster, or about £22 billion if they're carried out while the MPs and peers remain in situ. So there's this idea that, parliamentarians, how couldn't they use some of these old Nightingale hospitals? Fill it with a few seats, plastic seats. The MPs can sit there, they can debate. Wouldn't that be much cheaper than, building a new parliamentary building or maintaining Westminster? Like, how much of Westminster is actually needed? I know there are many offices for parliamentarians and offices within the state, but is it necessary to maintain? Maybe it's better just to close it down and turn it into a museum. Might be more profitable. The Tories care about profit. Can I just demolish the old building? No, turn it into a museum. It has a lot of history. The Commons leader said she would present the options within the next 12 months, if she's there that long, and arrive at what we damned well need to do. She said some work might be possible while parliamentarians carry out their normal business, and if they did have to move out, we would look at how to squeeze that down to a minimum period of time. There is a risk that if they do move out, it'll be permanent, because and this sort of begs the question, the whole need for a parliament like this. Couldn't they actually do a lot of this electronically? I'm not saying to get rid of the House of Commons, but if you really pushed the envelope, you could actually do all of this, I think, electronically, and you wouldn't actually need a parliament. You could have a virtual parliament. I'm sure something similar exists around the world. I'm not talking about it on a national level, but maybe on a local level, or on a regional or federal level, within a federation. There could be a possibility of a virtual parliament, because what the parliamentarians actually do, doesn't actually require them to be there. But they claim it is. I'm not an expert on parliamentary politics, on the parliament itself, on the work of the parliament, but, businesses have adapted. Surely parliament could adapt. She said that there might be opportunities to trial technology while MPs and peers were away from Westminster, and to use the move to get round the country and generate a bit of excitement. Mordaunt also was followed by Lisa Nandy, the shadow levelling up secretary, who gave her own analysis of why the country is facing so many challenges. Nandy said every major challenge comes down to one thing: the government having written off the talent, the potential and assets of most of the people in almost every part of Britain. She said it was a social crime, and no part of Britain can succeed unless we grow ourselves in every way, in every part. She said that the waves of political upheaval felt in the UK had been the sound of people demanding to change things to take charge of their own destiny. This is something that has been, echoed by Mick Lynch and others, where the people want to take control of their destiny and they feel that they can't. And I think a party that does use this as a slogan or as a message or as a vision would be successful. And I think the Labour Party really need to start doing that. Smash the darn like button. Well said, Night Raven. Great to see you on the stream, Night Raven. Smash the like button. It helps out the stream. Anyway, let's move on. As we know, the healthcare system is under a massive strain, also in Northern Ireland, which doesn't really get a lot of notice from time to time, but a lot of mention. So I just want to cover a bit of this as well before we move on.
Chris, those waiting times numbers are staggering. They're even more bewildering when you spend a day here and you see every single member of staff is working flat out and every corner of space is being utilised, and still across this entire hospital, across this entire health system, those numbers aren't decreasing, they're not even staying still, they are increasing. As of right now, every single one of the 500 beds in this hospital are full. 100 of those patients could have gone home today, but there isn't anywhere in the community for them to go to. Systemic change is needed, say health experts. But remember this, health is a devolved issue. Decisions are down to the Northern Ireland Executive, and the Northern Ireland Executive isn't sitting right now over arguments about the Northern Ireland Protocol. And while decisions aren't being made in Stormont, ambulances continue to stack up, patients continue to wait. The demand is unrelenting.
Sometimes we have patients here for 5 days.
And the system is buckling.
It's really tough. So you're talking about a service that I don't think it's unfair to say is collapsing around them.
Caution, patient lift in operation.
Tuesday morning at Craigavon Area Hospital, where there are no slow days. This elderly patient fell and spent the night on the floor. Fortunately, her wait outside in the ambulance, waiting to be seen by Dr. Gareth, was only 45 minutes today. Delays here are the new normal, with new, expensive, additional costs.
This looks pretty new. We've refurbished it, trying to get more toilets in the emergency department, trying to get an area with a shower. Yeah. So if you imagine, we've had people here for 100 hours. You know, we've had people here for 4 or 5 days. So,
wait a minute. So someone comes into A&E and they've been here for 4 or 5 days?
Yes, we've experienced that, unfortunately.
Why?
Because there are absolutely no beds anywhere else in the hospital that they can go to.
Okay.
And so we refurbished this because we had to have cubicles with proper doors on.
So you almost actually changed the infrastructure of the A&E to accommodate people who just wait for so long now?
Absolutely.
This is insane. So the A&E is changing, is evolving to deal with, and this is what I've seen with the NHS. The NHS is extremely good at adapting to problems. Unfortunately, the government is throwing more and more problems at it. These people need to be moved out. Well, they need to be moved into hospital, and those who are in hospital need to be moved into social care. But they can't because social care is full. There is no availability. Why is there no availability? In many cases, because there isn't the staff available. This isn't just happening in the UK. There are a number of countries around Europe who are suffering in a similar way. They can't get access to the staff. Unfortunately, in the UK's position, it has created a barrier to actually resolving that problem. That being Brexit, of course, and the ending of freedom of movement.
Every inch of this accident and emergency department is now treatment space, even corridors.
How long have you been here for?
Since last night.
Okay. Long night?
Very. Very noisy.
Is there ever a day where you actually have enough resources for the people that you're coming through the door?
Not this last year. It has been constant. It has been always behind. We're always been struggling. We've never had enough to meet the demand. I can't even think of one day this year, not in the summer, not in the holiday time. No. Okay, I'm going to get a scan of your brain done and we'll come back and see you, okay? Yes.
This patient came in this morning with a suspected stroke. Fortunately, the ambulance was prompt, and getting him off the ambulance into A&E was also prompt. But right now, in Northern Ireland, that is not always the case.
Because of the stresses that the ambulance service is under at the moment in Northern Ireland, are patients coming to harm?
Yes, patients are coming to harm. And again, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. Patients are coming to harm on a regular basis. And that is...
To what extent?
So it's multifactorial. So people are dying probably that shouldn't die. People, for things like strokes and heart attacks, if we're not getting to them quick enough, are they getting treatment quick enough? You know, that's the type of issues that we're facing up to as a health service and a society, that we can't get to people in time. And people are asking us for help and we want to be helping them and we can't.
The Northern Ireland Ambulance Service is currently examining 8 incidents of delayed response where deaths are involved. But delays aren't just at the sharp end, they run throughout the entire healthcare system.
At the minute, I was meant to be seen in December, and that was on a 12-week waiting list, and haven't heard any news yet for my asthma.
Okay, so have you got any idea when you're going to be seen?
Not yet. At the minute, it's probably going to be about March time, end of February, start of March is going to be the earliest.
That's longer than 12 weeks then.
Yeah, a lot.
Despite the small...
Sir Larry the Cat makes a very valid point. 40 new hospitals. Cough, cough, splutter, loud farting noise. Boris Johnson promised 40 new hospitals. Some of those are projected to be built. Some of them are just being retrofitted. There isn't going to be 40 new hospitals. And it upsets me that there are people who are like, yeah, get Boris back. We need to get Boris back. Boris Johnson lied through his teeth on so many occasions, and especially during, a crisis like this where you need real leadership. The last person you want in charge is Boris Johnson again. He's writing a bloody book at the moment. My God, let's move on. Brexit. It's just the news just gets better and better. Battery startup Britishvolt enters administration as rescue talks fail. Battery startup, this is really sad because this is what people in this part of Britain need. They need jobs, they need support. This could have been a real opportunity. Green jobs for the future. Producing batteries for electric cars and other for homes as well. This could have been a great success, but unfortunately it's not working out. Battery startup Britishvolt has collapsed into administration, with the majority of its 300 staff made immediately redundant after talks about a rescue bid from several investors failed. Britishvolt has filed notice to appoint an administrator in the insolvency course on Tuesday, and the accountancy firm EY has confirmed it has taken on the administration. Staff were told the majority of the 300 employees would be immediately made redundant on Tuesday morning. The company's efforts to build a large facility near Blyth in Northumberland has stalled in recent months as it struggled to find a cash injection to pursue the project. EY said the company had entered administration due to insufficient equity investment for both the ongoing research it was undertaking and the development of its sites in the Midlands and North East England. Once again, the North suffering when they need more and more investment and jobs. The administrators, one of the 4 accountancy firms, will now assess the company's assets, including its intellectual property and research, in an effort to pay creditors, and will subsequently wind down its affairs. Britishvolt has said on Monday that it was in talks over a major sale of the business, but those discussions appear to have failed. Shareholders have been voting on potential new investors in the £3.8 billion Gigafactory project, which was seen as a key pillar in supplying the next generation of electric vehicles built in the UK. The company's management has been in talks with a number of potential investors. had been in talks with a number of potential investors, including existing investors, keen to prevent the value of their holding from being wiped out. An obscure Indonesia-linked group with little experience in manufacturing. The Guardian revealed last week that Daya Lab Group, a UK-based private equity investor, and an associated metals business, Barracuda Group, were in talks over a £160 million rescue deal. Sources close to the situation said the existing investors had been close to securing a deal with the Indonesia-linked consortium, which did not have the necessary funding required to take on Britishvolt. However, ultimately both appear to have failed to reach a deal. Once again, this is really sad. This was going to be, a project for the future. It was going to be providing batteries for electric cars, and of course, all the major manufacturers are moving to electric, and they would have required these batteries. But it seems that supply issues and concerns about the future meant that it was too much of a risk for some of these investors. Ian Lavery, the Labour MP for Wansbeck, where the factory was to have been built, said the situation was deeply concerning and noted that the project was once the crown of the government's levelling up policy in the northeast. Britishvolt narrowly avoided entering administration in October after it secured a last-minute injection of £5 million from the FTSE 100 from the FTSE 100 mining company Glencore, which was already an investor. Glencore had a deal with Britishvolt to supply cobalt to the factory. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy spokesperson said, "We remain hopeful that Britishvolt will find a suitable investor and are disappointed to hear that it has not been possible, and therefore no automotive transformation fund grant has been paid out. Our thoughts are with the company's employees and their families at this time, and we stand ready to support those affected." This is, once again, it's a sad story, but it's was not to be. Clap for strikers Thursday and tell your MPs and Sunak. Very good. Alexis, thank you so much for that super chat. Remember to clap for strikers. They are the ones, once it was clapping for carers, now it's time to clap for strikers. With the battery plant not going ahead, Nissan will be going too. There is this concern, yes, that the companies who did rely on batteries from this company, this plant company, they're going to have to find these batteries elsewhere, which is a cost to bring them in, and then there are issues of rules of origin. So there is a current concern that Nissan, which of course is moving towards electric like most other car companies, may downsize, or it may completely eliminate its investment in the UK. They have invested a huge amount so far, and they have received government funding, or not government funding, but they have received government guaranteed loans, I should say. Okay, moving on. Corruption. MP who received donation from Landowner refuses to criticise Dartmoor camping decision. So a Conservative MP who received thousands in a donation from a wealthy landowner who took Dartmoor National Park Authority to court has refused to comment on a legal decision that has led to a ban on wild camping in the park. Last week, the right to wild camp in England and Wales was lost after hedge fund manager Alistair Darwell. Hedge fund manager. Can you imagine a child growing up? What do you want to be? I want to be a hedge fund manager. Wow. You little demon, you. Always the bad guy. If you're a hedge fund manager in a movie, you're going to be a bad guy. Successfully brought a case against Dartmoor National. Are there any good hedge fund managers? Are there kind hedge fund managers? Hedge fund managers that look out for ordinary people? Or is it a nonsensical statement. Brought case against the Dartmoor National Park. It was the last place it was possible to wild camp without seeking permission. Darwell, Dartmoor's sixth biggest landowner, brought the case against the National Park Authority, arguing that the right to wild camp on the moors never existed. Darwell, the owner of the 1,619 hectare or 4,000 acre, he wouldn't have even noticed. The area is so big. How would he have noticed that they were actually there? Blatchford Estate on southern Dartmoor offers pheasant shoots, deer stalking, and holiday rentals on his land. What the hell is deer stalking? Maybe I don't want to know. Anthony Magnol, the MP for Totnes, or Tots, however you pronounce that, which is near the national park, has told constituents MPs should not and do not comment on legal cases. Yes, because I received money from this guy. Magnol registered £5,000 contribution to his campaign office from Darwell's in 2020. You know, this is somebody who's multi-millionaire. Donate £5,000 to your local MP and they'll rewrite the rules for you. There you go. Guy Shrubsole, constituent of Magnol's and campaigner for Right to Roam, said, I've wild camped on Dartmoor Moor since taking part in 10 Doors as a teenager, like thousands of other people in Totnes. Once again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. Totnes. And the Southams. I'd like my MP Anthony Magnol to be standing up and defending the right to wild camp on the moor. But many of his constituencies are now wondering if a hefty donation from the landowner has effectively bought his silence. Of course it has. Other local MPs have been happy to comment on the legal matter now that the case is closed. Richard Ford, a Liberal Democrat MP for Tevern, said, I'm deeply concerned about by the ruling on the wild camping at Dartmoor. As a child, I wild camped. What is wild camping? Is it like camping just without facilities? On Dartmoor while training for the 10 Doors expedition and for the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Without these experiences, I would not have joined the army or trained to be a mountain leader. So there you go. You just donate to your local MP if it's a Conservative and they'll rewrite the rules for you. Wonderful. Sold out for £5,000. What a cheapskate. Yes. Taverton. Okay. Tiverton. Somebody wrote Taverton. Somebody wrote Tiverton. Camping without the butler. What's camping? When I was homeless last year, I was up on the moor. Two ex-vet farmers gave me food and money. Both Toffs and Tories, and disgusted in their government. That was 2021. Wow. Wild camping equals tense. What's wrong with wild camping? I don't know. £5,000 is pretty cheap to sell your son over. You know, the £84,000 a year doesn't pay the bills, so you have to reach out to your local landowner and ask them to cough up an extra bit to pay those bills. Well, you don't actually have to pay the bills; you can put them on expenses. Okay, to feed the family, actually, you can put that on expenses as well. So to change the car, to upgrade to a new model. That's what the money is for, probably. There we go. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so we'll just take a short break and be back in just a moment with some more serious stuff. I hope you enjoy this funny clip.
The fire service that's holding the country to ransom because they all just decided they'd prefer to drink tea on a freezing picket line than save children from burning buildings. It wasn't so long ago we were clapping them. hailing them as heroes. They were all considered key workers during the pandemic, weren't they? Bus drivers, teachers, nurses. Now they're called lazy, work-shy fuckers. Postal workers striking to save what's left of the Royal Mail, it having been sold off to the lowest bidder for a quick buck by the millionaires in Westminster. But it's your postman who is destroying the country. The entire Northern Rail network on the brink of collapse, whilst rail companies and their shareholders make record profits. But it's that fat lazy fucker behind the ticket desk asking for a bit of job security who's destroying our rail infrastructure. 25 to 50% of average households are unable to pay their bills this winter, whilst energy companies announce record-breaking profits. In 2021, Shell paid £0 on their oil production in the UK and received £100 million of subsidies in taxpayers' money. Working people are suffering at the hands of corporate greed and unbridled economic mismanagement, and this is why people are striking for better pay, conditions and job security. Recently, the government gave us the Public Order Bill that even one Tory peer described as an affront to a civilised society. Crackdowns on peaceful protest is the purview of China and Iran, not British democracy, and yet these reactionary fuckwits tell us it's Scottish primary school teachers who are holding us hostage. The bastards who wrecked the economy, squandered our reputation on the international stage, sold off any and all of the country's assets for a quick buck, are getting their mates in the media to tell you that it's bus drivers, bin men, teachers, nurses, postmen, passport control workers and rail workers who are throwing the country to the dogs. Don't believe them. They are lying to you.
So there you have it. It's the bin men. I knew it would. I knew it all the time. It was the bin men who were destroying Britain. There you go. Not Liz Truss or Kwasi Kwarteng or Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak or whoever the next Prime Minister will be. It's not them that's destroying the country and the economy. It's the bin man. Anyway, well said, Jonathan. Moving on. Energy bills calls for social tariff when UK government support ends. So Jeremy Hunt is a big, massive Jeremy Hunt. Jeremy Hunt is facing calls for a social energy tariff providing cheaper gas and electricity for low-income households to be introduced when the government support ends next year. Now, what's going to happen as well, and Martin Lewis has talked about this, is that bills are going to rise in the next number of months and then fall, but they'll be still higher than where they are now. The average bill, the average usage, which there isn't a real average, which is very concerning because people are already struggling and now they're going to struggle even more this year. In an open letter to the Chancellor, 95 charities and non-profit organisations have urged the government to move quickly to legislate for a change in energy bills for those in greatest need to ensure that they're able to live in their homes comfortably. This is something, that used to be taken for granted, living in your home comfortably. A social tariff would involve lower income households receiving significant discounts on their energy bills, funded by taxation or by spreading the subsidy cost across better off bill payers. Though the energy price guarantee, through the energy price guarantee scheme, the government provides financial support to limit average household bills to £2,500, rising to £3,000 from April for the year. Now, even though it's rising, people are still going to be paying more. I'm all right, Jack. Keep your hands off my stack. Well said, FSM. Thanks for that super chat. If you're a government minister or a member of parliament, you're going to be all right. And it's difficult to convince people who are all right to look after those who aren't. That's a big problem. That's why you need MPs who actually understand the cost of living. You don't actually have to be poor or have come from poverty, but it does help. The letter signed by organisations including National Energy Action, Age UK and Scope calls for that government support to be replaced by a tailored scheme from April 2024. The organisations want to see energy suppliers introduce a discounted, targeted tariff made available to people on existing schemes, including means-tested and disability benefits and the carers allowance, alongside those still struggling with their bills but missing out on support from the welfare system. Social tariffs are commonplace in the telecoms industry, and there have been calls for all energy suppliers to offer them. Some energy companies did offer social tariffs before the introduction in 2019's of Ofgem's price cap, which set limits on how much all customers would be charged for usage. Suppliers have suggested a social tariff alongside reformed price cap to address high bills spurred by the rise in wholesale gas prices. Michael Lewis, the UK's boss of energy supplier E.ON, last month called for a social tariff for low-income households. So, some of the energy companies, especially the wholesale ones and the retail ones in particular, are calling for this because they understand that many of their users can't pay the bills. And it's better for them, of course, because then they're not ending up with customers who can't pay and them having to go looking for that money. But from a social point of view, you can't have a situation where people can't turn on their heating in winter. And this week has been particularly cold. There needs to be extra support, and the price the price cap is not enough. There needs to be extra support, targeted support for people who are, for example, the disabled, who we know that in many cases require extra usage because they have to keep warm, they can't move as much as able-bodied people, they have to plug in very expensive and energy consuming equipment and run it all day, for example, in some cases. So this is they're not average use, and they need to be protected where they haven't been so far. Okay, moving on. Well, sticking with this topic, but changing slightly.
Lunchtime at this primary school in Westminster. From January, all the children at the school have been given free school meals. It's funded by the local council as part of a borough-wide initiative helping to tackle the cost of living crisis. All of the food is homemade and seems to be pretty popular.
Every single day, I just get excited. I don't know why, but I just get goosebumps when I come to eat. I get hungry.
Oh, I love how it gives me energy after, so when I learn, I have more energy, I'm not tired.
Once you eat, then you're focused more when you are in class and you're learning.
Teachers here say the number of children coming in hungry had been on the rise. They know to ask certain children in the morning whether they've eaten enough.
I went over to him and asked him if he'd like to go and have some lunch, some school lunch, and he said no. And I said, but are you hungry? And he said, yes. So then have some lunch. He said, but I can't. It's like, but why not? All our food's freshly prepared on site, all the meat's halal. And he said, because my mum said I can't have the lunch because I can't pay for it. It has a huge impact.
My God. Don't have the lunch because you can't pay for it. Come home hungry. I'm not a big fan of these heartwarming stories, but this is, in a sense, a heartwarming story that you have Westminster Council who are actually doing this. This should be done on a national level, not relying on councils to do it, because this is a cost that the council has to bear. And this should be done on the national level, because councils are already in a difficult situation financially, and this is a burden for them. This should not be provided by the council. It should be provided by the state. This is a drop in the bucket in regards to cost. Kwasi Kwarteng was able to write off £40 billion, was it? The current Prime Minister, when he was Chancellor, wrote off £9 billion in fraud. But no, we can't provide free school meals because that's too expensive.
On their work, asking children to learn, engage in learning, retain their learning, they have to be fueled. And children who come to school having had 2 custard creams on the way to school against children that have had porridge and fruit and toast with a hot drink as well, it's not a level playing field. So as a school, the first thing that we do is ensure that those children have their playing fields balanced out.
That's great, because then they're able to learn better. And if you're, a pure capitalist, these are going to be better workers. But, children growing up need proper nutrition. If they don't have that, they're going to have development problems. I know the Tories don't care about that. Just say, well, if you can pay for it, then you'll be okay. If you can't, well, we don't care. But this can't be the way things are. And it's great that there are councils who are stepping in and filling the gap. But the gap shouldn't exist in the first place. Guys, so let me read some of your comments. A bedroom tax never affected those in private rental only. Not only in social housing. If only we could eat people. There's so much of it around. Wales is bringing in for all primaries, free school dinners for all. That's great. So some governments are willing to do it. Why is it always left-wing governments? They're willing to do it, but right-wing, of course, not. I learned this week that people on PIP is personal. What is it? It's about an assessment, personal assessment, I think it used to be. Didn't get any help last year, 650 quid. And won't this year. Terrifying, as I'm trying to get PIP and have been for 9 months now at a tribunal with 70% overturn. Best of luck, David. And children are fed at schools might have more respect for those schools and social causes. Wait, we need to feed the children? How can we get this breakthrough to the Conservatives? Will they be able to understand the complexities and intricacies of this incredibly difficult concept? Well said, nerdy rodent. Made my mum's a lady now. Bought a couple of pack for my mum and dad. I own a bit of land. Well, my mum do. Folks, Max added channel memberships now. Check it out. No obligations though. Yes, if you want to support the channel or if you want access to Discord, there's a new way. You can either become a patron or you can do it through the YouTube memberships procedure. No obligations if you want to check that out. Personal independent payment. Thanks for that, Calmac, sorry. What the UK can't afford is any more Tories. Yes. UBI, Max. Well said. A UBI is the way out of this. So I want to move on to a very difficult topic that's causing a lot of problems at the moment. The topic itself is not causing problems, but it's creating a bit of a political storm between the SNP in Scotland and the Conservatives, in particular in Westminster.
Well, the two sides are as far apart as ever. Alistair Jack, first of all, made a statement in the House of Commons. He's the Scotland Secretary, trying to be emollient, trying to use moderate language, trying to be conciliatory, talking really about if only the Scottish Government would just amend its bill slightly to protect the rights of women and girls in the rest of the UK. He said that the Scottish legislation conflicts with the equality laws here in Westminster, and also on issues such as women's only single-sex clubs, equal pay, and so on.
Now, so Alistair Union Jack, some people call him Alistair. Thanks so much for that super chat, Alistair Carr here. Keep up with the excellent informative informative. Quality content, Max Fons. Thanks so much for that. Thanks for that super chat. Greatly appreciated. I'll do my best. But Alistair, a different Alistair, good Alistair here, but bad Alistair, the Secretary of State for Scotland, Alistair Jack, says that, yeah, we need, this legislation is problematic because it undermines the rights of women, which is interesting because I want to show you something different. This is Citizens Advice Ireland. Okay, so it says here, since September 2015, trans people in Ireland can apply to have their preferred gender legally recognised by the state. This is set out under the Gender Recognition Act 2015. Anyone over 18 can apply to change their gender. You can apply if you are age 16 or 17, but the process is slightly different and may take longer. If you are under 16, it's not possible to change your gender that is recognised by the state. So, in Ireland, it has existed since 2015. And Alistair Jack and others are saying, no, you can't have this in Scotland because it's going to undermine equality legislation in the UK. It's going to lead to men breaking into women's only spaces and harassing them. But if this hasn't been a problem in Ireland, then I would assume it's not going to be a problem in Scotland. Some people think it's going to be a problem, but if it hasn't been a problem since 2015 in Ireland, then I presume it's safe to say that it won't be a problem in Scotland. So the argument that this is going to undermine women's rights is without any sort of finding, without any substance. Is it just a matter that, is it just a case that Alistair Jack wants to use this as a political football? And Ireland is one country. There are a number of other countries, Belgium, Spain. I think Canada is going to do it soon. There's a number of countries around the world where you can change your gender, and all hell hasn't broken loose. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry, we have a super chat from Alistair. Once again, thanks so much, Alistair. That's the third time Westminster blocking Scottish law. Yet again, other countries have the law, as Max just stated. Yes, other countries have it as well, and their societies have not collapsed. It's scaremongering by, I think it's a fringe movement, and it was very disappointing to see the Labour Party, now, which is really strange because the Labour Party in Scotland supported this, but the Labour Party, for the most part in Westminster, are against it. How is that possible? Are Scottish Labour politicians made of different material than the Westminster ones? I don't know. Thanks for that, Alistair.
The suggestion that an amendment might be the way out of this was put by Douglas Ross, the Scottish Tory leader speaking in Westminster. This was Mr Jack outlining why he's taken the action that he has.
It is our assessment that the bill would have a serious adverse impact, among other things, on the operation of the Equality Act 2010.
Which is bullshit.
Those adverse effects include impacts on the operation of single-sex clubs, associations.
You know that Northern Ireland is not affected by this. Why is that? Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, but Northern Ireland has its own gender recognition legislation. I'm really surprised that nobody brought that up.
And schools, and protections such as equal pay. The government shares the concerns of many members of the public and civic society groups regarding the potential impact of the bill on women and girls.
Once again, bullshit. Is he suggesting that women and girls are not protected in Ireland? That they have been abandoned? I really wish journalists would call him out on this. Like, okay, he's in the House of Commons, but when the next time when a Tory MP has been asked questions about this particular issue, I really wish somebody would ask, okay, but are you suggesting that women and girls in Ireland, for example, or in Belgium, or in Spain, I believe, are undermined by this? Have they been undermined? What are we talking about? 7, almost 8 years has passed since this act was put in place in Ireland. How come it hasn't been attacked on a daily basis? Bullshit from the Tories once again.
The bill also risks creating significant complications.
Sorry, Anthony says, DUP end the chat.
From having 2 different gender recognition regimes in the UK and allowing more fraudulent or bad faith applications. The government is today publishing a full statement of reasons alongside the order, which will set in full the adverse effects the government is concerned about.
And this is it, the statement of reasons. Now, there was almost a pantomime in the Commons, really, not just because the SNP kept referring to Mr Jack as Baron Jack, because he's on his way to the House of Lords, they believe, because it wasn't made available. The SNP appealed for and secured an emergency debate, which is still going on. But there was no sign of this document. There were calls to postpone the emergency debate. But anyway, it went ahead. Eventually, copies of this materialised. However, according to the SNP, the reasons in it are pretty flimsy. Not worth the paper it's written on, said Ian Blackford, the former Westminster leader. A load of mince, said the MP Kirsty Blackman. Now, opening the debate, Stephen Flynn, who leads the SNP in Westminster now, was talking about the outrage of the veto of the Scottish legislation, and he obviously has made the charge, as have many MPs, that it's a constitutional outrage, what Mr Jack has done.
But it is. So, whatever the Scottish Parliament... See, when something like this goes through, it goes through the Scottish Parliament, and then it goes to the... goes for royal assent. And that's the last step in the process. But the Secretary of State for Scotland can block it. That doesn't sound like a union of equals to me, where the SNP can't block legislation in Westminster, but Westminster can block legislation from going for royal assent in Scotland. How is that equal? It's not a union of equals. One has power, the power of veto, and the other doesn't. The Scottish Parliament can't veto anything. The Scottish Parliament would have liked to have vetoed Brexit, but it couldn't. It doesn't have that power. This is... Now, on this one particular issue, the Westminster government is vetoing the legislation. What's to stop Alistair Jack from vetoing any other legislation? Nothing. He has that power. The unionists in Scotland, in particular in Scotland, will say, it's important that the Secretary of State can veto this type of legislation, but you're not exactly winning people over to your side by saying that. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. God forbid trans get European Court of Human Rights 8 protections. Yeah, the Brexiteers will lose their minds over that. Mad Jack. Alistair, once again, thanks so much for that super chat. This was debated for 8 years, Max. And this is something that the leader of the Scottish Tories has been always saying, why wasn't this debated enough? It's been debated for a long time.
The outcome of all this is likely to be a challenge in the courts, as Mr Jack conceded, and so it does look as though there's another legal battle coming, just as there has been over Nicola Sturgeon's desire to press ahead with a second independence referendum. There are those MPs who suspect that Nicola Sturgeon is relishing a confrontation because it will strengthen her hand in her push for a second referendum. Some Tories claim there is not the public support in Scotland for the legislation that the SNP claims. The SNP have repeatedly claimed this afternoon it's backed by SNPs of all parties, not all the MSPs of parties like the Tories, of course, only a few of those. But this is a battle that's going to go on.
No, the Tories will say, oh, this is just a tool being used by the SNP to encourage more people to back independence. But it was supported by the Lib Dems, the Greens, well, the Greens supporting independence, the Lib Dems, and the Labour Party. The Labour Party in Scotland voted for this. The Labour Party in Westminster are against it. How do you... I don't know, how do you resolve that conflict?
For some time, Mr. Sunak appears desperate to avoid a confrontation, but it does seem to be heading for a confrontation. The SNP are unlikely to make concessions, and my word, they're making a lot of noise about it in the House of Commons this afternoon.
Because they see it's a waste of time being in the House of Commons. What is the value of being in the House of Commons if you're a Scottish MP? You have no control over the way the Westminster government operates. FSM, thanks so much for that super chat. Will trans people protect women from Met Police? Wow, yeah, very good point. Very good point. Who's going to protect women from Metropolitan Police officers who are rapists? Yeah, you know, talking about a non-problem, pretty much a non-problem. I think it's a non-problem about, you know, that's been raised by these anti-trans people. But they're pretty quiet when it comes to police officers who have been literally raping women in police stations. Just a little bit more on this from Channel 4.
The drumbeat of dissent. Screw the veto, say trans campaigners outside the UK government building in Edinburgh. Just as, in the Commons...
Mr. Speaker, today I will make an order under Section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998.
To shouts of shame from the SNP benches, the Scottish Secretary stood to deliver that Westminster veto, blocking a bill passed in the Scottish Parliament for the very first time. That bill sailed through 86 to 39 at Holyrood. It would have made it possible for trans people to self-identify their gender, lowered the legal age from 18 to 16, and removed the need for a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. The arguments around this bill were explosive and impassioned enough when they were only concerned with the substance of it, about gender. Now there are accusations of hidden agendas flying around from all sides, as this becomes yet another set-piece power tussle between the UK and Scottish governments that will surely ultimately be decided in court. After last week's cordial meeting with Rishi Sunak in Inverness, today discord, Nicola Sturgeon accusing the UK government of a direct attack on the Scottish Parliament. What some call the nuclear option is written into the act that actually created the Scottish Parliament. Section 1, there shall be a Scottish Parliament. Section 35, the UK government retains power to intervene in certain cases, including if they believe a bill passed in Holyrood would have an adverse effect on laws that Westminster is responsible for.
The approach taken in the Scottish Government's gender...
In this case, equalities law, although the Scottish Government disagrees.
Those adverse effects include impacts on the operation of single-sex clubs.
Now, of course, why was this not raised as an issue by the UK government before the bill was put to the Scottish Parliament? You know, they're saying now, this affects UK equality legislation. That why are they saying it now? Why didn't they say it before? They never raised this as a red flag before. They're only doing it now, which begs the question: is this a political football that the Tories are playing? Let it go through, and then complain about it. Because complaining about it before, well, it could be exposed by legal experts as not really a problem. Then the Tory government would look extremely embarrassed. It's better for them politically to let it go through and then try and make some sort of political capital on it by undermining the Scottish Parliament. There's no real benefit here, though, for anyone. It's not going to win, really, the Conservatives' many supporters in Scotland. It's going to affect people mainly in Scotland. So I really don't understand what the Tories are expecting to gain from this. It's Westminster's flexing. we're in charge, telling the Scots, shut the fuck up, sorry for my language, sit the hell down and do as you're told. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about strikes taking place at the moment.
20,000 university staff have voted to strike on the 1st of February in a dispute over pay, pensions and working conditions. They'll join members of other unions taking action that day as part of the TUC's Protect the Right to Strike Day.
I just want to say thank you to Nina. Nina, thanks for that super chat. Now, Scottish men wear trans flag themed kilts. Now it's your time. Well said. And I want to see all of my Scottish friends wearing these kilts. Well said. Thanks for that super chat.
Well, we can cross to Sky correspondent Matthew Thompson, who's in the newsroom for us. Hi to you, Matthew. Now, we've had teachers already vote to strike this week. It seems university staff are following suit.
Yes, indeed they are. I mean, the announcements keep coming thick and fast, don't they? Now we know that, as you say, tens of thousands of university staff will take strike action across 150 different universities. That's on the 1st of February. But they also say that a further 17 days of strike action in February and March are to be announced next week. It comes as they've been in a dispute over pay. They've been offered effectively 3% pay rise for the year 2022-23 and then a further one of 4% for the following year. The union says that's not enough. Let's bear in mind that we know inflation is running at closer to 11%. You mentioned also that school teachers have announced they'll be going on strike. That was from the National Education Union yesterday. That's 3 days of national action in England and Wales, which the National Education Union says will affect some 23,000 schools in February and March, and then 4 further days of more localised regional strike action taking place. That's after the government said that most teachers would get a pay rise of 5%. Also today on
So inflation is at over 10%. We're going to give you 5%. How are they expected to retain staff, to recruit new staff? Yeah, please don't leave. We're going to give you half the inflation rate. So you're going to get poorer. Okay. Please don't go. We're going to give you this amount of money. Please join the profession. We're going to give you this amount of money. It's less than inflation, but well, we've destroyed the economy. Now we have to get other people to suffer the consequences. There are staffing shortages. The way to deal with staffing shortages is to pay people more to create better working conditions. But the Tories don't seem to care about that. They just want the private sector to pick up the slack once again. They know that many richer people will just send their kids to private schools where they can afford to pay higher wages. And the public state schools will just get worse and worse because they don't care about them. They care about their friends and their donors. And some of these friends and donors obviously run private schools. And it reinforces the class divide as well. More on the strikes.
A reasonable balance.
So, Grand Chaps, Right Honourable Grand Chaps, of course, introducing this bill yesterday, which will undermine the right to strike. And what's really annoying about it is the language they use.
But we also need to maintain a reasonable balance between the ability of workers to strike with the rights of the public who work hard and expect the essential services they pay for to be there when they need them. And we need to be...
But they're not there now, you idiot. They're saying, okay, we need to bring in legislation to force workers to go to work and provide a service, but there isn't that service already. This is the big problem with this legislation. You want the same with GPs. They're saying we need to force GPs to work more. But there aren't enough GPs, and the GPs at the moment are already overworked. We need to force train drivers and rail operators, operating staff to go into work. But there aren't enough of them at the minute. The companies are trying to cut staff. So the companies are allowed to cut staff, and you're going to force the existing staff to work more. Ambulance drivers, there aren't enough, they're already at breaking point, and you're saying we need to provide a minimum level of service.
Be able to have confidence that when strikes occur, people's lives and livelihoods are not put at undue risk.
But they already are at risk, you idiot.
The strike's minimum service level bill will ensure that we protect the ability of workers to take industrial action, but that will also protect the public from...
So you can go on strike, but you better not go on strike. That's what he's trying to say. Because if you do go on strike, you'll probably lose your job. If you do go on strike, you'll be probably fined. But you can go on strike. Okay. So there'll be strike. You can go on strike, but there will be consequences. You know, how is that different to Grant Shapps holding a gun to people's heads saying, "Don't make me shoot you"? Maybe we can cut down on politicians. You know, there are so many MPs and members of the House of Lords who are doing nothing. Couldn't they, you know, get all these people to go out and drive ambulances and, you know, work in train stations, cleaning toilets and stuff like that? You know, where there's a shortage, there are a lot of MPs doing nothing all day. Maybe they could go out and help fill some of these gaps, no? Instead of using the army. They keep relying on the army. Maybe some MPs or members of the House of Lords could do it. You know, they'd still get their money, so they wouldn't have to lose any pay, but they could help fill the gap. Oh my goodness. Moving on to another topic of crime.
This is a truly shocking and appalling case, and I welcome the statement today. A serving police officer admitting to some of the most serious and devastating crimes. I join the Home Secretary in giving tribute to the bravery of the victims who have come forward, but we have to face up to the further evidence that this case has brought up of appalling failures in the police vetting and misconduct processes that are still not being addressed by the government and are not being addressed in this statement. And I would say to the Home Secretary that given the scale of the problems, not just in this case, but in previous cases as well, her statement is very weak and it shows a serious lack of leadership on something that is so grave and affects confidence in policing as well as serious crimes.
Maybe I'm overly cynical, but does anyone actually think that Suella Braverman cares? Does she care? Do you think she cares that this police officer did these things? That there isn't a robust vetting process in place? Do you think that she'll actually care about putting one in place? Do you think she'll care about sacking the people who knew about this and did nothing about it? Those ultimately responsible? Does anyone honestly believe that she'd do any of this? Of course not. Why? Why would she bother? She doesn't care. She doesn't care about the victims. Doesn't care about the level of corruption and disgusting behaviour that takes place within the police service, the Metropolitan Police Service. Of course she doesn't give a crap about any of that. It doesn't affect her personally. It's, you know, a sort of I'm all right, Jack, not on the economic level, but on the moral level. I haven't been affected by these police officers. When I walk into their office, they all stand to attention because they know I'm the Home Secretary. I have more power than they do. They have to jump to attention. They have to keep their noses clean while I'm in the area. Because no one would dream of doing anything to me. They would suffer serious consequences, unlike members of the public. You know, the wrong people are in charge, and hoping that the wrong people will do the right thing is a waste of time. It's the BBC all over again. Dobby is still dreaming of her flights to Rwanda to care about anything else. She'll give not a fig, Max. Yeah, you're right. Somebody give her a sock so she can go away. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to cover one final story. I don't know if this is related to Tory policy. Oh, video unavailable. Okay, that hasn't happened before. So it was video from Sky News about raw sewage being pumped into the sea. And unfortunately, it has been taken down for some reason. That's really weird. Well, switched from public to private from Sky News. Unusual. I don't think there's a conspiracy there. I just think maybe there was an error or something in the video and they decided, no, we better take it down. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. And thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. After the stream, we'll be on this post-stream chat on Discord, and we'll talk about what was covered tonight. If you want to support the channel, you can become a patron, or you can become a member. There is a button on most of the videos to become a member if you want. You'll have access to Discord, and I'm considering also adding some extra features for people who are members of the channel. Maybe access to videos when before they drop, or maybe some unique content, something like that. It's a work in progress, so I'll keep you posted. Alexis, thanks so much. That super chat towards the end. Michelle Moan would work off 200 PPE 29 million pounds by driving an ambulance. That'd be a lot of driving. A lot of driving to work that off. Yes, put her to work. In the US in the 1950s, they would, if you committed a crime, you could work it off. You could have corrupt Tories working off their debt to society, literally. So guys, I want to say thanks once again. Before we finish, we have our one for the road. Hopefully this one will work. I am pretty sure it will.
This week, the government
enjoy
announced plans to give police powers to stop protests before they even start. So, Commissioner, how would that work? Well, we all know the kind of people who like to make trouble. We'll just look out for the telltale signs. What sort of signs? Dreadlocks, veganism, social conscience, quite opinionated on Twitter, that sort of thing. Do you not think you should be focusing on crimes that have actually happened, rather than trying to predict those that might happen in the future? We're a modern police force. We don't like to get hung up on the past, like lockdown breaching parties. Indeed, it's all very complicated. And you know what they say, prevention is better than cure. But apparently not when it comes to your own workforce. There have been a number of shocking incidents recently involving Met officers. Yes, and we're very sorry about that. We've let everyone down, especially women. Although, to be fair, there was very little we could have done to prevent it. Well, apart from listening to the numerous complaints made about them over many years and their widely known incriminating nicknames. Apart from that, yes. Actually, sorry, slight tangent, but don't you usually have epaulets on your shoulders? Oh, yes, they've gone missing. Missing? Yes, last time I saw them was at the station. I think someone must have stolen them. Okay. But I'm sure I'll get them back soon. I've already spoken to Phil the Pickpocket, Klepto Keith and Fingers McGee. Are they your main suspects? No, the investigating officers. Right. Now, on a lighter note, I understand that the Met Police is now branching out into brewing. Is that correct? Yes, well, we deal with the effects of drinking every weekend, so we thought we'd better get involved in the supply side too. I'm delighted to announce the launch of LOLOLO alcohol cider. And you're closely involved in the process yourself. Yes, I look after the barrels of apples, quality control if you will. So what do you do when you find an apple that's rotten? I fish it out and carry on, because you know what they say, one bad apple gives you no information about the other apples in the barrel. Right. And how is the cider? Undrinkable. Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, as HMRC launches a campaign to warn people of the dangers of getting involved in tax avoidance, we ask, might it be a good idea for them to start with the Cabinet?
A very good idea. Well said, Matt. So, guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. And as always, stay safe. Take care. Good night.